Can you guys hear me?
Yes, perfect.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. All right. Okay, let's start this thing. Let me just share my screen before I forget, like yesterday. So let's do that. And you should be seeing it now. Awesome. So the first thing I'm going to say is that our group, we got most of us in there. So we have like only like 5 people missing. So if you're one of the 5 people, this is the name of the group we have on Facebook. So it's like flies are people too, which I mentioned yesterday was named by Palomita. Palomita actually named that, and I think it was a great idea. You know, it's like the fly on the wall, and flies are people too. So this one is not the same, not to be confused with this one. Flies are people too. This is the original one, and then we have this one now that's called Flies are People too, June 2019. So if you can join, basically we have 29 members right now. We are missing only 5. And it's cool because like people are starting to share their stuff. I saw this awesome post here by Fabricio. He posted today. I didn't have the time to comment because I wasn't home. I just saw it. It looks pretty cool. I'm going to comment later. So he's going for a Rembrandt, which is awesome. So, you know, it's like we're going to be sharing like links and stuff like that. There's some studies of likeness already going on. You know, I posted the link in there. So make sure you check it out. It's going to be very helpful for you guys as well, like to catch up with stuff. Sometimes if you have a bug with the system in here, normally I just, you know, post it over there. Although we only have like bug one time that my computer completely shut down. It was just for 5 minutes or so. But that's kind of like the place where I put the communication in there. So keep an eye out for it. So today I'm planning to actually do some renders. And the reason why is that I really hate to actually evaluate the forms just by using ZBrush, right? This new camera in ZBrush is pretty cool and all, but I don't trust it. You know, it's like I had some problems in the other class, for example, like, you know, things like that between 18, 14 doesn't work. Depending on the model you have, sometimes 35 and down doesn't work. It just like doesn't change anything. It just stays locked into 1585. And not even those give me like a similar angle as I'm getting in Maya, for example. So I'm still not trusting the camera. So the best way to evaluate if the forms are correct, if the proportions are correct, if the face is not warped, is by doing an actual render and seeing this in an actual 3D viewport. And to do that, I'm going to use Maya. So yesterday I was actually talking about like the whole thing about working in production, and that everything is very linear, and it's quite boring in a way because you're gonna be dependent on the next person every time, right? So you're gonna be, you know, it's like you're gonna do your part, you're gonna do the model part, and then gonna pass your model down the road to like a texture artist and then a rigger. You know, it's like everything, and you're only gonna see a result like a render after you have all those pieces together. You know, it's like at least like an initial pass of each one of those disciplines, and then you're gonna see a render. And sometimes it takes like you know, a couple of days, sometimes even a week. You know, it's like to get something back to see what's going on, so you can actually do some tweaking, and because that's the only way to see it, right? Like when you have an actual render. But in this case here, since we are the owners of our own pipeline, right? Like, so nothing better than that. I mean, like we have absolute control of all moving parts of the pipeline. So we're going to be doing this from the get-go. As soon as we have something fairly decent, we're going to bring this to Maya and we're going to do some renders. I mean, like, I'm always coming from the principle that you guys know a lot of ZBrush and Maya, but at the same time, I know that some people in the group sometimes are not like, you know, at the same speed with everybody. So I'm going to go and take like babe steps, you know. I'm going to go to Maya and show exactly all the settings that I'm using for rendering. Some of us are like modelers, but we never did like any actual renders, you know, using Arnold. So they're going to be introducing some of you to Arnold. And for some of you guys, it's going to be a little bit more of the same, I guess. But it's going to be important just go through that, you know, and get some renders. So with that in mind, you know, it's like once we have those renders, I can actually compare to my pictures and do something, you know, it's like to make the likeness a little bit closer, right? So the first thing I'm going to introduce you guys to here is I already pointed you to this website that's called HDRI Haven. right? It's free. I mean, like he accepts donations, right? Like they have if you go, like they have the little goal in here. You know, it's like, so you can actually donate to them. So he's getting like $2,000 a month or something like that from Patreon. But everything is free. You know, you don't need to. But if you want to be nice, I mean, you could just donate some bucks because there's a lot of interesting effort being put in this website. So if you go here, I mean, like you have the HDRIs, and then you have the gallery. So everything is separate. It's very well organized. I normally go for the indoor stuff and kind of like stay in there. You know, I like the side lights, side and top light the most. So if you can find stuff, for example, like this, you know, like an art studio, you have the windows in there. You're gonna have a nice side lighting, depending on how you're gonna rotate your HDRI. So you have this other one here, artist workshop. You have this other one here. There's a nice light as well. I use this one sometimes. This garage here is very cool too. It's kind of like diffuse. But then don't get stuck like just looking at the image themselves and looking at those little reflections in here. Sometimes it's very surprising how cool you can get some of those renders from stuff that you didn't expect. You know, sometimes you look at the picture and you're like, oh, this is too yellow. It's going to turn out this and that. And sometimes you render your stuff and it looks really cool, you know. Or this one here, for example, like, oh, it's going to be completely green, you know, when I render. And of course, you're going to get some green reflections and stuff like that. But the quality of the lighting is really good. It's like a daylight from the top. So it's like very high windows. And you get this nice shadows, you know, it's like underneath the nose and the eyebrows, for example, instead of like something completely flat. This one is a great one. It's like a garage with the open sky. And then the one I'm using for those latest renders you saw, I was showing yesterday, it's a very diffuse one, which is this one here. It's a glass passage. And sometimes those ones, like for some greenhouses and this kind of stuff, they're very nice, you know, because they normally diffuse the light and you get this nice global light with beautiful reflections. So this is a nice one to use. But, you know, have it, you know, go take a look. And like I said, try them out. You know, it's like download like 10 at a time or something like that. And then experiment with them, because you're going to be surprised with how cool some of them are. And the best part is that they're apparently, like, I don't know if all of them, but every single one I tried so far, they are very well calibrated. So I don't need to do any tweaking. I don't need to overexpose them or underexpose. If I set to one, I normally get like out of the box like good results, you know. But obviously you can tweak stuff. You can actually, if some of them are too warm, you can actually add some blue to it and just like calibrate a little bit more towards daylight. And I'm gonna show you the tricks as well, like how to do that. And then the other website is very old. It's this one here, the original HDR Labs. It's hdrlabs.com /SIBL and then archive.html. And then there's a lot of free stuff in here as well. They have like the chrome ball kind of HDRIs, and they have like the environment stuff as well. It's kind of like a cylindrical projection. So if you keep scrolling down all the way, you're gonna see it ends in here, but then there's a bunch of other packs. This is a very cool one here, which is basically like if you're going for a studio lighting, what you can do, you can actually map some of those HDRIs to your area lights in Arnold. And you can get like these beautiful reflections that look very realistic. For example, like an umbrella. You get the nice umbrella reflection with the eyes of the character, or a softbox now. And everything is like HDRI, you know, it's like it's generated like that. You have like those ring lights for like those beauty shots, right? Dish. So very, very cool. And then my favorite one here from this entire collection is this one here. It's called Nature Lab. So if you scroll down to Rhode Island School of Design, there's this Nature Lab, and then there's a skeleton room. It's really cool too. And like I said before, like the greenhouses are very nice because they have a very diffuse light from the top, which is always important. Like if you want to get that dramatic kind of like a little shadow under the nose and the eyebrows, you know. But you get a ton of green reflection with it, obviously. So it's up to you, you know, it's like how we're gonna approach it. Obviously, you can actually create kind of like a little environment, or you can actually mask these things out, or you can actually be Photoshop, eliminate a lot of the stuff. It just keep the light from the top, you know, whatever you want to do, mix different stuff, you know. But that's basically it for HDRIs. That's my main sources, those two websites, and most of all the stuff I use come from here. So go there and grab some of those, and then let's go back in here. So my model from yesterday, I saved this. I posted the link as you guys asked. So I kept working on it for another like hour and a half or 2 hours, and then I posted it in the you know, I don't know if you ever used this thing here. But for example, like if you had the whole session of modeling, a lot of you guys gonna know if you use ZBrush a lot. But in the spirit of like sharing everything that I'm doing here, so we don't bypass any step. So basically, the way it works is like this. So this entire session started right here, right? This was the state of the model done during the class yesterday. Other than the teeth, right? The teeth, I actually I added that little broken up teeth in there, just like a quick model, just to kind of like emulate his teeth. He has this weird teeth. So other than the teeth, everything else was the same state that we had after, at the end of the class. So what I did here, I actually I generate a little movie here for the first step, which was basically like from the base mesh all the way to this step here. And then I did another one from this step all the way to the end, and then I merged both movies in After Effects, and then I just published. But the way I do it is normally like this: is you go to Movie, and then by default you're going to see those settings here. It says Window and Medium. If you click just Document and Large, you're going to get like basically like the entire area here is going to be contemplated instead of just a small version of it. And then if you go to Modifiers, there's a couple of things in here. Let's open up like all of them. So title image, sorry, let me just dock this to the side so you can see it. So title image, we don't need it to put the logo from Pixelogic in there, so like 0 everything. Overlay image, same thing, just undoing it. You know, opacity just at 0, you don't need to move those ones, but just opacity, 0. And magnifying glass, don't need to worry about it. This one, you don't need to worry about the timeline stuff. Then under modifiers, you're gonna go here and you're gonna turn off a couple of things. For example, like there is a camera movement that's saved. You can just like bring everything to 0 here. And then this is gonna cause the spin for the turntable stuff. So you just turn off as well. So at this point here, the model is locked. And I like doing this way because I pick just one pose, something like this, for example. And then I wanna just do the step-by-step so people can see the progress from a certain angle, because I kind of hate that little spinny around thing, you know. Sometimes you get dizzy just like looking at someone modeling like that. And it depends of the modeler, of course. Like some people can actually spend a long time just like tweaking one area, so they're gonna spin less stuff. But because I'm constantly looking at stuff, my turntables become like vomiting inducing, you know, my time lapses. So that's why I kind of locked in one position like that. And then I kind of like, especially like at 3/4 or something. And then I do from there. So if you have all those things set like that, the next step is to actually save the camera, which is a really cool thing that this new ZBrush has. So for example, here, ZBrush now, if you save the camera, for example, let's say I pick a position like that, and you're gonna go to your draw, and you're just gonna say like store cam, right? So you're gonna name here like my cam or whatever you wanna name. And then now, if you go to any position here, obviously, you go something like that, you just go to draw, and you press that my cam, it's gonna lock to that position, right? So that's one part. But then now if you go to plugin in here, there is a plugin here. Let's see if I find it. My eyes. FBX export import. And then you have the export tab in here. Let me just check the settings first, options. So you have like export cameras only, and then import cameras. And by default, this one is, the only is off. So you just like import everything. So I just keep those two with only, export and import. And then you can export your camera now from here. So, which is really cool. So you do like export, and I'm gonna save as camera 2, for example. Okay, camera 2. My computer was sleeping. I think it's gonna take a little bit, but yeah, it's good. So file exported, right? So now let's pretend we open another file. So we open the file number 1, the one that has this history saved as well, which is the one I did from the base mesh all the way to this spot here. So to make sure that my camera matches that, I just go over there and I can just say, okay, plug in. Let's just like, uh-oh. I hope I didn't delete my history. No, I think it's fine. So I go to plugin and I just say import now. And I can just pick that camera. And now you're gonna say like append or replace. If I do replace, it basically like pops to that position. So you can do this like at multiple different scenes, you know, it's like projects. So you always have that camera saved for any time you want. So that's a very useful one. And then from this point on here, we already have all the movie settings already in place, the ones I just showed you guys. And then you have those things here, like you go backwards, so like backward history or forward history. So if I want to record a movie with the forward history, just press this button here, F history. And then what ZBrush is going to do is going to do this. It's going to go through every one of those frames. And it's going to record all of this into a movie. So you can actually share your time lapses, right? It's going to go to all the way. And obviously, it's going to be smaller if you have like a much like the less dense mesh, right? In this case here, the mesh was a little bit dense with 400,000 polys. But if you're saving this with a mesh that's only like 20,000 polys, it is going to be very fast, you know, to generate the movie. And also the size of the scene is going to be much smaller. And then once that's generated, inside of movie here, now we're going to have an option here to play the movie, right? It's going to say like this delete button is going to be on, so you can actually delete it. And then you're going to have an option to play the movie. And then you're going to have also this H here for export highest quality, and then export. So when you export this, then the movie finally is going to be exported to a file, right? So that's how I did it, export 2 of those files, and then put together After Effects processed. And then there's an awesome little software that's a freeware called Handbrake. If you never use it, it's pretty cool. That's for conversion of files. So basically like a file that was like, I don't know, like many megabytes, like 300 megabytes or something. With the Handbrake, that file became 900K. It basically like compresses like a lot. And I normally create like a .move, like a QuickTime format, so I can actually see them in my phone and post on Instagram without a problem. So just a few, you know, things in there just to share a little, a couple of toys I play with. And then in here, when it comes to the model itself,
I got a quick question.
Yes.
Did you say that you imported your previous session and it had the history still?
Yeah, it all depends of how. I didn't import here, right? I actually saved the file with the history. So you just click this undo history here, right? And you just save it. And then when you open, you have everything available in there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
No problem. So I just gonna ask you guys, like, it's only cool to ask the questions. I'm gonna just like ask you guys to wait like for until like 10:30, which is basically like 45 minutes from now, because this first one I just want to get stuff through, and then you guys have the open mic to ask right later on. But you know, just so I don't miss the mark here. And then, so I was planning to do some more work in the likeness because I'm not happy with it. Obviously, it's gonna take me a couple of days, you know, it's like to really get something cool. But I think I'm gonna do this render straight away, so we are not like stuck to this, you know. So you guys can start playing with that kind of stuff as well. So the first thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna export the teeth as well, because I want to see the guy with the teeth, right? So I'm gonna just like tweak the eye just a little bit here, so I actually can have the eyeballs inside of the sockets. And let's see a little bit more of that, because right now it's just a sketch, so there's nothing with absolute precision at all. It's just like everything is a little mushed together. So let me just export this the way it is. And let's do a export. And I'm gonna export with the maximum resolution, which is 400K here. And let's do just head. Or you can just do like a gray head. And I normally put the number. And this number here, the sequence I'm gonna use for everything I do. For example, if I'm exporting maps, and it's gonna be related to version 1. And then if I keep saving this head at some point is gonna be version 35. So when I export my maps, I'm gonna be renaming the subtools to 35 as well, to basically match that version, so I know exactly what to look at. So I'm gonna go like array head 1. Fine. And exporting with polypaint, which I don't care at this point. But so this one here is going to be another 194,000 polys. So let's do that. That's going to be ray upper teeth 1. Oops. Teeth 1. Lower teeth I'm not carrying at this point. So eyes. Let's do it. Eyes. Ray. Eyes 1. Okay. And now we are kind of set to do some renders. Let's go back to Maya. So let's open it up. And just for the record, that's the stuff I was going for. I was showing yesterday. And actually, I was trying to actually go more for this one. But I think this has a little bit of an exaggeration in the smile, you know. So I'm gonna end up like relaxing his features slightly. Let me just close that. Relax his features slightly, and then go more towards this, you know, a little bit more of like a little smirk in there, but without like an actual, you know, showing too much and compressing the eye bags too much with the squint. So I'm gonna go for something a little bit more neutral like that at the end. So I'm gonna start neutralizing more and more. So let's do this. So here's Maya, and the first thing I'm gonna repeat, I already said like the first class we had, the first lesson we had. I actually went here, but I'm gonna exhaust this because it's very important, you know. So if you go to the import OBJ options in Maya, if you never set this up, make sure you go down here and switch from multiple objects to single object. Otherwise, your model, if you have polygroups and stuff like that from ZBrush, is going to come all split, and then your topology is never going to match, because we're going to need the topology to match at all times, because you're going to be doing some morph targets and blend shapes to actually, you know, if you have already like XGen applied to your model, you're going to need to adapt that model to the next iteration, you know, if you're doing tweaks to your model. So let's make sure that we have single object, and then under edit, you can just click save settings, and then from this point on, you don't need to worry about it anymore. And also this one here, if you're importing stuff from other scenes, just make sure you have a settings like that. Off for the use namespaces, and then by default it says all nodes, just switch to clashing nodes, and then this string you just keep empty. So that means like it's gonna force Maya to actually import scenes. Basically, like everything is gonna come without the prefix. You know, it's gonna come just like with clean names, right? Exactly like you had in your scenes, unless there is a conflict, and then it's gonna rename it. But that's about it. So let's save this one, save settings, and then under OBJ, those options are gonna be just available if you have this drop down selected as OBJ in here. So make sure you have OBJ. So you're gonna go to import, and we did this. I'm gonna repeat it again because it's also important. Because before you do anything with Maya, set your project, right? I already showed you guys that the project window, you know, you just have to browse and basically like accept all the default folders, and then that makes sure that everything is set for you. So if you're gonna render stuff from now on, for example, if I go here to the render settings, it's gonna put right there inside of the right folder at all times. And some of the stuff, it's very dependent on the structure of the files, right? The folders and everything. So it's good to have the project set from the get-go. So just gonna import again, and I'm gonna go to OBJ in here, which is the folder where I'm saving all my stuff. Oh, this is Stan Winston, so I'm just gonna switch to, you can just click the set project in here, and you can just navigate to, let's see, right. Oh, look, Chris has a texture XYZ folder. He's lying. No, actually, this was a courtesy from Jeremy. He sent me a lot of stuff actually back in the day, and I saved them. But I'm not going to be using those in those models, unfortunately. But I don't blame you guys if you want to use, because it's really good stuff. You know, I just like, it's my own philosophy to just try to do stuff by hand and learn with it. But I don't blame you guys if you want to try it. I'm totally fine with that. Use anything you need actually, but if you want to follow the class, it would be nice if you just didn't use it, at least for the purpose of the class. So let's go to OBJ, and by date, Let's get the eyes first. Oh, actually, I'm setting the project first. So if you're setting the project, all you have to do is just have to click the folder name. So let's go back to Ray right here, and then just say set, right? So now it's gonna switch automatically to that folder, and then you can actually source OBJ by date, and then Ray eyes, import, and then if I press G, it's gonna repeat the last action. So it just like goes back to the same window, Ray upper teeth, and then G again, and then Ray head. So now is the first time I'm seeing the head here in the scene. So I don't know if it's gonna look okay or not. Looks okay-ish. So the first thing to do here is to actually, I'm gonna hide this grid because you don't need it, right? So under show here, if you go all the way down, you can just hide the grid. And then this is the default material in Maya, right? Nothing too fancy or special about it. So if you wanna select your camera, the best way is to just go to view in here. So click view and then say select camera. And then by pressing Control A, at any time in Maya, go to the attributes of that object that's selected, right? So if I select this object and press Control A, then the attributes is gonna show up in here. If I go to the camera, select camera, the attribute's gonna show up in there. So that's the attributes of the object. So by default, it's set to 35 millimeters, right? If I switch to 85, that's more like a, you see like the face got a little bit too wide now. Reason why I cannot trust the ZBrush camera, because I was using 85 here and it's not as wide, right? So let's see, document, no, draw. Let's switch to 85. It's kind of similar, but still looks like in Maya is a little bit flatter than that. I might be wrong, I don't know. It looks a little flatter. But then I'm gonna use this one as a parameter to actually correct that and remove some of this weird perspective. Let me get back to this one, not this one, this one. See like how wide is looking in comparison? Just gonna bring it back here. So I'm gonna be tweaking that, and I'm gonna, you know, it's like make more of this V shape for this for his face as I go. But first I have to get some renders out to test it out. But let's do that now. Let's look at some basics about the viewport, like how to set up the camera and everything. So I already set to 85 in here because I want to make sure that I'm rendering something that's just like a portrait, basically like a shoulders and head. Like I said yesterday, sometimes if it's just a face like that, I would rather use like sometimes even 100, you know. But in this case, the model got a little bit too wide. So once I correct everything, I can go back to 100 if I want to do like a nice close-up. But about like head and shoulders would be like an average of 85 would be good. And then if it's just like, you know, it's like a little bit more of the chest and maybe all the way to the waistline, it would be more like a 50 millimeters lens. And then if it's a full body, more like a 35. But in this case, I'm gonna keep 85. For the record, if you're modeling and trying to match something that you're seeing like in real life, I think the angle of the lenses of our eyes, like how it compares to a camera lens, is about 60 millimeters. So I think like between 55 and 60, you get something similar to the human eye, you know. So first, let's go through the settings in here for rendering stuff. So I'm gonna click this little button here, display render settings. And first off, I'm gonna just put a name in here. I'm gonna call Ray A. This is gonna be like every single new render I do from this point on is gonna have that name inside of that folder. And I already went through this entire thing. You're gonna just go faster this time. You can watch in the first video we were talking about that. So I'm gonna keep EXR, zip file, zip compression, and then I'm gonna switch this one from single frame to animation so I can actually render multiple frames in the sequence. I'm gonna keep 10 and there's fine. And then I'm gonna switch this one to 900 by 900, which is like the Instagram resolution I normally render, either that or 1000 by 1000. And I'm just gonna set up all my stuff again here. I'm gonna keep this one at 6 as, for the beginning, and then I'm gonna increase it later. So 6, 3, 3, 3, 3, and then no adaptive sampling for now. clamping, nothing, and then filter, I'm gonna reduce this one to 1.5. And again, I'm going fast just because this was covered before, so I just don't wanna waste you guys' time. This one I'm gonna turn it off because I'm not gonna do anything super fancy with SSS at this point. And ray depth, I'm gonna just increase this stuff here, but I don't need to. It's just in case of, you know, if we have like transparency in the scene and glasses and things like that. I normally use that, especially eyes. But the default should give me enough depth to render everything. This one here I don't change because it kind of assumes how many subdivisions it's gonna do when you put this in the attributes of the object. So if I set like 4 subdivisions, you know, it's like it's not gonna, you know, the micro subdivision is not gonna go as far as 255. But if you wanna guarantee that's never gonna pass a certain number, you can just put like 6 in there or something, you know. But I never change it, and it doesn't impact my render time. And then for system, I'm gonna just switch the bucket size to 16, so all my little processors can work faster, and actually finishing each one of the tiles much faster. And then that's about it for the renders settings. Again, I already covered this one, so just textures here, just in case I'm gonna turn it off as well. This was covered as well. And then the other thing I do is normally I go to View, and then under View, you're gonna see there's camera settings, and then you have resolution gauge. So if you click that one, now you're gonna see a square like that actually represents the camera itself, right? Like the area that's gonna be rendered. So if I get closer to that, now my lens starts working a little better. It was a little flat before, but now I can start seeing a little bit more of a natural camera. I think it's gonna work at 85 actually. It's not too bad. I can actually do my sculpting based on this camera here. I think should be fine. And then obviously if I wanna have something locked so it's not like wobbling all over the place, I can make sure I actually create a keyframe for that. So for example, frame 1 in here, right, in the timeline. So I'm gonna go frame 1, and I click View, select camera. So I have the camera selected. And I'm gonna press S, like Sam. And now I have a keyframe. See that little red line in there? And then maybe I can go like to frame 2, and then do like a 3/4 like that. And then press S again, get another frame. Another trick, normally if you look at my renders, it's never gonna be something that's completely, you know, lined up like that perfectly. For example, the head doesn't have any, you know, it's not leaning to either side, right? But to make sure that my renders look a little bit more realistic, almost like someone is actually holding the camera and taking those pictures, I normally add a little roll to the camera. So if you go to View again, and you go to the camera's tools, there is this tool here called Roll Tool. So if you click on it, that's basically what it does. You can roll side to side, it rocks like that. So if I'm taking doing like a render, instead of like keeping boring like that, I normally do something like this, you know, put a little bit more to the side or a little bit more like that, depending on what I'm planning to do, right? So in this case here, if I do something like that, and then I just, you know, the head's a little bit more, it's a little higher now, right? So I'm gonna save this, this camera angle at this point. So select camera, S. Actually, did I save on top of 1? I guess so. So if you did that, you can actually go and you press the back bracket in here, and then it actually saves, like it goes to the previous camera angle, right? So that's basically what I had before. So like the brackets, you know, just keep going back. It saves the history of your camera. So that's basically what I had. So View, select camera. I'm in frame 2. I'm gonna just press S. And then the third one's gonna be a full profile one, for example. Actually, the one I have in there, he's kind of like this side profile. I'm just gonna save that. So again, frame 3, press S. And now I have all those frames saved for me, right? So when I'm planning to render this as a sequence, all I have to do is just have to set up this in common here, the render settings common. I'm just gonna set to 1 to 3, for example, in here. And then it's gonna render those 3 frames for me, right? Let's close this one up. And so I have the camera set up. Another thing that sometimes I use, it's under camera here. If you go to View and camera settings, there is a field chart. And this one actually has this grid that actually can guide me to for my composition, right? Like, so you have like the center line and the diagonals. So for example, if I'm trying to do like a nice little portrait in there, I'm gonna try to maybe, you know, it's like put the eye a little bit closer to the center line in here, right? Something like that. So I'm just gonna select and then S. So just a little guide, you know, it's like for this kind of, you know, the composition itself. Sometimes it's nicer, you know, to just have something a little bit using the 3/4 and things like that, you know, it's like position the eyes in a nicer position, putting the nicer position. So I'm gonna turn it off for now because it gets annoying if you are actually trying to navigate. So the field chart's gone now. And now let's bring some light in here. Let's go through some of the basics of Arnold for lighting, which is basically like the menu is right here. So if you go to Arnold, you're gonna have access to all this stuff. The first one is gonna be the Arnold render view, because by default, Maya uses its own render view, but Arnold has its own render view, which is better. It works nicely. And also you have like all those little, you know, it's like tweak tools here, like for gamma and exposure, you can do everything here, you access with this little gear, right? And then here is the exposure you can control as well, the aperture, and this is basically like the camera that you're using. So I'm using perspective, right? So that's the only camera I have. But if you have more cameras created, you're gonna have access to that as well. So I'm gonna just move this one away. Oh, you see what Maya's trying to do is actually trying to dock everything there. Look, if I release it now, it's gonna dock it. And I hate that stuff because I wanna be able to control it. So if you go to Windows and then Workspace, the last option here says disable docking and unlocking. So I normally keep that one on. So now if I can just move in here, it doesn't dock it, you know, it just doesn't bother me. So I'm gonna just move this one away for now, the other monitor in here. And the other options under Arnold here, you're gonna see like the next one, you're gonna be the lights you're gonna look at. So they have like area lights, a sky dome light, which is the one we use for the HDRI. They have mesh light, which is very useful. For example, if you want to create an unusual shape, for example, you can create an area light that's it looks like an octagon, right? So you create a cylinder like a regular object that, you know, it's like a chop just the bottom off with the 8 sides, and then you have an octagon, and then you can just assign that object and transform into a light, and then you have basically you can have any shapes, right? Photometric light you can actually download from the internet, you know, it's like actual data from the makers of the light bulbs, and you can actually just, you know, it's like you can go to any of them like GE, Philips, and they all have those photometric lights data they can actually download and assign to your lights, and then you get this beautiful, you know, it's like very natural kind of, you know, it's like when you see one of those fancy light bulbs that produces in a certain pattern, it almost looks like a caustic effect against the wall, right? Like has this almost like a drawing of the light in there. So you get like all these different ones by using this. And it normally when you download the file, it comes with a JPEG example, like a gallery showing which one of them, how they look like against a wall, right? Like, so normally people use those for mostly like for architectural stuff, just to get like the nice looking lights. But in our case here, we're just gonna be using the sky dome light, right? Physical light, we're not gonna use, no portal light, but we're gonna use the sky dome. So click sky dome. And now you're gonna see you have this sphere here around the object, right? It doesn't matter if you scale it or not, you know, it's like it's gonna be the same. The result's gonna be the same because it kind of like it goes to infinity and then basically treats the same way. So the first thing you're gonna do, now we have the lights selected, we're gonna assign an HDRI map. But before we do that, let's just explore the options here by default for those lights. So by default, you have the intensity here, which is, like I said, like those HDRIs from HDR Haven, they are very well calibrated, so you don't need to change the intensity. Let's keep it 1. For the resolution, depends of the resolution of your map actually. So I'm gonna put like 4K for 4096. And then if I'm not mistaken, the color temperature doesn't affect the HDRI, but affects the area lights. So this doesn't matter. It's not gonna affect anything. There is one thing here that I always thought it was a little strange in Arnold, that by default they use this normalizing here on. And the normalize is more like it's something for creative kind of lighting. If you want to make sure that everything is correct and physically accurate, you turn it off. But the advantage of having it on is it's like this. So for example, we have a area light. Let's create an area light fight first. Let's eliminate this one. Let's create an area light so I can go from the beginning with you. So lights, and then let's go for area light. So now I have my area light. Let's move it around here. It's a little square, right? So look at this. If I change the size of it, naturally, if it's in real world, the softbox is going to be bigger, and then I'm going to get more light, right? So that's the way it works. Basically, if I have intensity at 1 and I keep increasing the size of it, I'm going to get more and more light until it blows up, until I get like overexposure in my model, right? But if you're trying to do something more creative with lighting, you can actually do, for example, like have a very high intensity lighting that's very tiny like that. And in this case, you can actually keep the normalize on, and then it doesn't matter how big or how small the light is, the intensity is always the same. The only thing that's going to change is basically like if the source is very tiny like that, you're going to get sharper shadows. And as the bigger you get softer and softer shadows, right? That's why it's called softbox, because you get like very, very soft shadows. It's kind of like to beautify someone, right? Like to, instead of like showing detail, you hide detail by making everything soft. So that's why I always found interesting that was on by default, because I want to have like a more physically accurate result. So I turn it off. So that's the first thing we're going to do. Turn it off, and then let's play with the area light before we go to HDRI. So the other thing I do, like for the samples, I increase to at least 2. So I have a little bit nicer detail in the shadows. And then this is very useful. For example, like you have the visibility for the camera, transmission, diffuse, blah, blah, blah. I use this a lot when I'm working with the HDRI. I'm going to be showing you guys, because the HDRI by default is going to be showing the camera at 100% at 1 here. But let's say in my shots, for example, if I was doing something like, you know, like those renders I did for Stan, right? So those renders here, you notice the background is very underexposure, right? And I did that on purpose to look like I'm actually overexposing the subject by creating a flashlight effect. And when you do that in real life, basically like you create the exposure, the camera evaluates the light in that subject, but then it actually underexposes the background. So that's why I tried to create something like that to add more realism to it, right? So to do that, you can actually simulate that by dragging the camera from 1 all the way to something like 0.2. And then you underexpose just the HDRI in the camera, but actually the lighting itself is going to be there. It's kind of like a creative way to just, you know, simulate this kind of effect, especially with the flashlight. So let's go back here and let's do a little first render. So we have everything fine. This one you can actually control how much you're spreading the light or not, or making more directional. It's almost like simulating having a grid in front of your softbox. So you can control the spread here. And then the temperature is very cool, because by default here it uses a temperature of like 6,500 Kelvin. But if you want to go for something that's wider, I would go for like 75, you know. And if it's like a like overcast day, like a little bluish sky, right? Then it's going to be something around like 8,000, 8,500 or something like that. And then, of course, you can go like very crazy with it. If you want to simulate something that goes like completely blue, you can pass like 12,000 or something. And then, obviously, if you go down to like 3,000, then you get like an incandescent light, right? You're going to get almost like a candle kind of temperature. So I'm going to use the color temperature just to do some testing here. And then for the lighting here, obviously, the position is going to matter. I'm just going to put like on top to get some shadows under his brows and the nose. And I'm going to try to do that light that's a little bit more on the 45 degree to create that little Rembrandt kind of render, right? Like that's the Rembrandt effect is that little triangle of light that you get under one of the eyes, right? It's kind of like Rembrandt would do that in his paintings. Especially those guys, they had access to like candles and things like that, like, or just like one source of lighting, you know, and then it would be cool to have this dramatic effect, especially for the Baroque period, right? Which is the period that Rembrandt was alive. Caravaggio as well is a great example of this kind of lighting. But in this case here, they're not using softbox, of course. They're probably using something like a candle or something like that, or I don't know exactly what, a torch, right? Something like that. So in this case here, let's do a quick render and let's see what the difference is between like, you know, using those settings or not. So let's just press this button here and see if anything happens. So if you're not seeing anything right now, let's go down here. So with normalize, without normalize. So now it's showing something. So let's turn on the, just gonna click this little button here and just open the window so it goes faster to render like that. And I'm gonna click on normalize. So with normalize, it doesn't show anything, right? The model is completely invisible by default. If I uncheck it, now it's actually respecting the size of my softbox. So again, if I move it to the side right here, let's make it smaller like that, and then just grow the model here so you can see it. So now if I grow the softbox, see the light starts blowing up, right? Now if I turn on the normalize again, to be able to see anything, I'm gonna have to crank the intensity. So I'm gonna just like, let's try like 20 here. Yes. Gonna have to go much higher than this, I guess. So at 2000, now I'm seeing something, right? And then let's see what happens if I just do this. Look. So the light intensity doesn't change at all. What's changing is actually just how spread out the shadows are, right? So I can get very sharp like that with a very tiny source, and then softer and softer until it gets so soft that it starts getting darker, right? Because everything becomes shadow. So that's more creative, right? But I like having something that's more accurate, so I'm not gonna do that. So I'm gonna just click this one off, and now it blows up because I cranked this one all the way to 2000, right? So let's keep at 2 for intensity. Let's 4, something like that, a little better. So that's like our first little render here in Arnold. So, you know, just a little basics in here. It's still not the rumble effect I was hoping, because probably like the position here could be a little bit more on the, so I'm gonna make it smaller and a little bit more intensity. So because now I have to actually use that. So 10, let's see, 10. And now I can try to capture that little, another thing here, I mean, if I don't want to be messing around with the same camera, I can actually create a new camera. So I go to panels, perspective, and then you say new. And now I can switch to this camera here, and I can play with it without messing with my rendering there. So let's just move this around to get a little more of the rumble effect in there. So I get the little triangle under the eye in there, right? So it's looking kind of nice. Yeah. So in this case, especially like for the rumble work, right? Like you're doing here. This one here, it's gonna be cool to actually do something with the rumble light. Although in this specific one, he didn't use a rumble light. He actually used a more frontal light, right? But it's gonna be cool to actually play with that. Maybe like get some interesting yellowish light. And then for the temperature of the light, we spoke about that around here, right? So if I'm using the kelvins for the color temperature, so if I go lower here, it's gonna get more and more yellow all the way to red, right? At 1000 it's red. And then daylight's gonna start showing about like 6000 and up. And then when you get like, 7000 is almost like kind of like a little bit overcast, right? And it gets very bluish, probably like more like towards snow, right? If you have like very snowy environments, you're gonna get like a little bit more of the, you know, bluish snow, bluish white. So I'm gonna keep around like, let's keep 7000. Looks pretty calibrated. And then let's play with the HDRI now. So now we have the basics of the lighting. Sometimes, I mean, like you get beautiful results just by using like a single light like that. You know, it's like, especially if you're working with the skin shader, the best way to try and get the skin shader to look nice is to actually get like a studio lighting that's just like from one source, because then you can actually read how deep the scattering is happening, how much of the glow you're getting, especially areas like the nose, you know, it's like lips and especially eyelids as well. So you get that nice little look in there, you know. So now we have the basics of the softbox, right? The area light. let's add let's just stop this so it doesn't render as I change anything here. So I'm gonna move it away, and let's look at the actual camera we have. And then let's hide this light. So you have the outliner in here, and then I'm just gonna hide it, right? Control H to hide stuff in Maya, and Shift H to show it back. So Control to hide and Shift to show it again. And then basically what I'm using here is this workspace that's called XGen Interactive Groom. I like this one because I have access to all my grooming here, and also the outliner and the channel box and everything in one place. So I like this little environment. So I'm gonna go back to our actual camera, which is perspective. And then I have them saved here, right? Like all the frames, so I don't need to worry about that, missing anything. So I'm gonna go and create light, sky dome light. And now we already have the basics of the entire thing here. I already spoke about the intensity. So I'm gonna turn off the normalize, and I'm gonna, color temperature is not gonna matter. I'm gonna add the size of the map. It all depends on the map you're gonna be downloading, of course. Like if you go to your, here, if you try to download any of them, you're gonna see there are multiple resolutions, like 1K, 2K, 4K, 8K, and 16K, right? I normally use 4Ks. They're good enough for reflections and everything. So I normally gonna just like try to match that resolution in here. So we have to do the same. So if you're using an 8K, it's gonna be 8192, right? 2K, 2048, and 24 for 1K. But you know, so that's basically what I use, 4K. And then here, samples are gonna put 2 again. It's gonna increases the render time, but it gives me nicer results. And I'm gonna leave everything default so we can test it. So under coloring here, you're gonna click this little box where you plug every single map in Maya is by clicking this little box. So you're clicking in there, and you're gonna search for file, which is the 4th option. Click on it. And then let's do a couple of settings in here first. So the first one I'm gonna turn off is the filter. I do this for all my maps. You know, it's like for this displacement maps, especially if I want to get like seamless stuff, I don't use like any filters. So everything is off. And then if you scroll down all the way here, you're gonna see under Arnold, you have like the auto generate textures. I'm gonna turn it off because I don't want to deal with the TX textures right now. It's kind of like a pain in the butt to have to refresh every time you change something. And since we're gonna be doing multiple iterations, sometimes at the same night, we're gonna be plugging different sets of textures, right? I don't want to have to actually refresh the entire thing every time. I'm just going to replace the textures and let it do its thing. And then color balance, I'm not going to change anything right now. When we start plugging maps, I'm going to show you when to use the alpha as luminance and things like that. So nothing for now. So by default, we're going to be using sRGB for anything that's maps, for example, like a TIFF map for the skin color and things like that. But for a HDRI map in displacement maps, I always gonna use raw. It's important because we don't need any color management or anything like that. Let's see if I can find in here. There is a little trick. For example, if you click this button here, which is the preferences in Maya, which you can also find in here under Windows Settings, Preferences, and Preferences, right? It's the same shortcut. So if you go here, you're gonna see there's color management right there, right? And this little interface here is pretty cool because what it allows you to do is to actually tell Maya automatically what to do with certain types of textures. So for example, if I have an HDRI texture, I actually just have to create a filter in here and just say, okay, when it's HDR, what to do with that file? And then you just click this drop box and you just say raw. I want all the HDRIs that can come in as raw. And the EXR, what to do with the EXR? Raw as well. If it's a default texture, sRGB. If it's a different type, you know, it's like you can set up like a JPEG to be something else. If you have like color calibrated to, I don't know, gamma 2.2 or whatever, you know, you can set up everything here. So that means that everything you import anything here is going to switch the color space automatically for you. So that's very important, you know, it's like it saves you some time. So just going to click this little folder here, and you're going to search one of those images, one of those HDRIs that I already have saved in here. I have a little collection. So I'm going to go back here, HDRI collection, and I'm going to go to indoors. and I have like some big rooms and then studio lighting. So under big rooms, I have a couple of them here. And I'm gonna use the Nature Lab first. That's the one I pointed you guys to, which is my favorite. So there is this one here that's the reflection HDR. It has a good size, right? So it's like 6.5. The environment here is just like 330 KB. So I'm gonna just go for the reflection one. It's the biggest one. Just open it. And then that's the Nature Lab, which is a beautiful environment. You know, it's like it's a laboratory, of course. You have those awesome reflections, but you have those two gigantic windows in there, and they give you some very nice reflections. By default in here, you see like they are pointing slightly to the side. You can actually click the HDRI and you can just like spin it around if you want. If you want to be very creative with it, you can actually spin this way, for example, and make the light go from the top, right? But I'm not going to do that. I'm going to keep it more natural. And then I'm just going to keep it, let's say, like if I go all the way to the side, let's put the light from that side, switch back to the camera to that, one of those cameras. And then let's just check how the render looks from the get-go. So let's just process it and see what it turns out to be. So let's see, turn off that one. So this is my first render with this model, right? So from the get-go, like I said before, we're gonna get like a well-calibrated lighting. So you see like my settings in here for the HDRI, other than changing the resolution, turning off normalize, and adding a little bit more sample, everything else is the default, right? If from the get-go, you're gonna get a very nice result already. So as I said before, if you wanna play with it, then you're gonna start, for example, spinning around, right? So let's make this character very small in here so the renders are faster. Not that small. So something like that. And then, oh, too much. Right here. And then I can just click this little box and just create a little light, little window in here. So it actually renders just that little spot faster. And then I can start spinning things around. So I'm gonna spin. Like that, and you can see the lighting changing there. Not quite real time, but you know, we can have a good idea about what's going on. I don't have GPU going on in here, so it's all CPU, right? So another way to do it is basically switch to that other camera. Just gonna stop this one so it doesn't keep like trying to render in real time. So I'm gonna go back to my other perspective, the other camera, so it doesn't affect this render. And from here, I can actually see what's going on in front of his face. I can see that the lighting is on the back now, but I can keep spinning until I see the light peeking through the side of his face, something like that, barely. And then if I render it again, let's see what we got. So yeah, so it starts looking a little bit nicer, you know. Obviously, without the eyes, we can actually not see what's going on in terms of the reflection or anything. But we can actually explore a little bit of the basic materials here in Arnold. The thing that's going to happen during this class is that, as I promised, I'm going to be revealing every single setting I use for all my materials, right? But this is going to come when we are actually dealing with the materials, not at this point. But this is going to be just a fast introduction here. So to access the hypershade in Maya, you're going to click that little sphere in here in the menu, or you can go, okay. Or you can go here to rendering editors and then just click hypershade. It's the same button. So this is basically going to be like a quick introduction to the hypershade. The way that Arnold works, it basically works with the Uber shader, right? Like everything is inside of the same shader, basically. Not the same, because we have like other specific ones. So we have like some ambient occlusion shaders and things like that, stuff for hair. But what I'm saying is like the physically accurate general shader is called the AI standard surface. And this one has all the parameters to create like all kinds of materials, like from metal all the way to skin. It's all the same material. And then you have those presets in here. You can see there's a ton of stuff that you can use for free right here. You can actually blend with whatever settings you have, blend by 10%, 25, blah, 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 or replace completely, right? So let's see if they have clay, for example. We have this clay in here. Let's see what do we get with clay. It's pretty red, so I don't like that. Let me just like desaturate it. Get a little darker, maybe a little bit brownish. And let's just assign this shader. So to assign a shader, you basically like you can drag and drop this into the object, or you can just click the object you want to assign to, and then right click right here at the top, right close to the name, not the name, but like the top. And then you say assign material to the viewport selection. And now it's assigned. So let's see what kind of result we are getting from this from the get-go. It's a little dark, right? Like I made things a little bit too dark. Let me just move this around. Actually, I don't need it right now. You just move it around here and then go to the attributes. And then you're gonna see the name of the shader is already here in the attributes, right? So you're just gonna rename here to clay, so we know what we're talking about. And by the way, like we are at 10:30. If you guys want to ask any questions, I mean, like you feel free. I'm gonna be doing some testing here, but it's all good. Just tweaking the color right now. And so the material itself, I mean, like it's very reflective right now, but everything is controlled right here, right? So the specular, you see the roughness at 400 right now. If I keep cranking this one higher and higher, it's gonna get more and more diffuse, right? And then of course, like more and more like, you know, wet towards this. So you get like all this effect going on in there. It's gonna keep around, like, let's say like the default we had, something like that. And then let's, hello? Yes.
Can you check link in chat?
I'm sorry?
Can you check link in chat?
Can I check what?
Chat.
Oh, just chat. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Let me see.
I have screenshot. It may helps.
Okay. So chat. Okay. Okay. Let's see. Oh, threads. Interesting.
It means you have all your threads in rendering except one. And
that
one increase your performance in viewport.
Oh, that's very cool. That's a good tip. So I put like -1 in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you. Yeah, you guys, I mean, like you have, I have like so many professionals in the class, you know, it's like a lot of stuff. I mean, like I'm doing my own way here, but I'm pretty sure you guys have some interesting tricks to teach. So thanks for sharing with us. Awesome. Yeah, let's gonna use this from now on. And then here, let's play with the subsurface a little bit as well. So just gonna, you know, it's like you're gonna just open a little window here, and maybe we can actually zoom in into his face. Oh, not this camera here. Let's zoom in into his face and get a little bit, just to, you know, it's like just introducing you guys to the shaders here so you can do some renders, you know, so you're not waiting for me or anything like that. So let's just lock into this area right here, maybe like a little bit of the eyelid, something like that. And then if we play with the subsurface, we're gonna go right here, and my setting is gonna be similar to this. I'm gonna be sharing everything later, but so this is gonna be like this. The scale here for the world scale I'm using, it's gonna be 0.110, I believe that's the one I'm using. And before I go there, you see like there's this weight in here for the subsurface scattering. And what this one does actually, it mixes with your base color, with the base, you know, it's like the, how you call the diffuse channel, right? So basically the diffuse channel here is cranked all the way to 1, and I have a color plugged in there. So what that means is that if I reduce this all the way to 0, now it's gonna get just the base color, right? But as I increase here, it's gonna mix more and more with the subsurface color until it's completely subsurface scattering colored right here, right? So that's cool to play with it, depending on the material. If you want to go for something more rubbery or a clay here, like they're doing, you know, it's like they're just mixing part of it, but keeping mostly not scattery. But for the skin, I normally crank all the way up, and I just control everything with the other controls. So the first thing I'm gonna do is just gonna create like a little neutral color here for the skin. Let's say something a little bit on, just like eyeball something here. Something like that. And then for the radius, let's look at the documents here, because Arnold, there's this awesome resource that you just like can use it. It's just say like Arnold, oops, Arnold 5 manual, or actually you can just go you know, straight to the topic. So Arnold 5 SSS, for example. And then you can just click the first link. And here you're gonna have access to all the parameters they talk about. And there's one in here that's actually pretty cool, that they actually mentioned how the scattering works with the radius. And it's basically like you're scattering the RGB, right? So each one of them gonna have a different depth in there. So depending of how you set the color, it's basically right here, look. When rendering skin, you should use a value like 1, 0, 35, and 2, which is basically what I'm using most of the time. So let's go here. So I'm gonna put it on the side. So it's 1, 0, 35, and 2. Let's repeat that here. So let's see. Oh, it's RGB. Okay. So if I go to RGB 1, so it's gonna be 1 here, and then 0.35 and 0.2. That's basically what they're saying. So that color you see, like it's kind of like a saturated, kind of peachy color. And that's expected because, I mean, like if you're trying to scatter, you're gonna get like some blood vessels, but you're also gonna get like some fat tissue and all kinds of stuff, right? So normally the color is a little bit more of the orange kind of side of things. So if you click to random walk, I'm gonna switch to random walk 2. And this is the newest algorithm they're using. And to have access to it, basically like you have to download the latest Arnold. If you have Maya downloaded, but you don't have Arnold, you can just say, for example, Arnold 5 download, and it should point you to the area, which is like Autodesk's area. So basically, like you're gonna go here, and then if you have an area membership, you can actually have access to it. So you're gonna click in there, and that's the latest they have. That's 3.211. This is the one that has the random walk 2. And it basically like it gives you nicer results, especially with the shallow surfaces. It's very, very subtle, but if you have like something that's very translucent, you get a lot with it. And then now that we have a little color plugged in there, which is gonna be the color we're gonna bring from the albedo from ZBrush, and the radius that's very, you know, basic, we're gonna play with the scale. So I'm gonna do that value that I mentioned before, 0.11, something like that. And you start getting a very, very subtle kind of subsurface. If I do something that's more dramatic, let's use our area light instead, so we can actually see what's going on here. Let's just hide this one. I'm gonna hide that, and then I'm gonna show the area light. So you're gonna see more of the, I think that if I spin around the model here, you're gonna be able to see a little more. Let's see, oops. Get this, I frame it. And sometimes if I crank a little bit more my intensity here, you're gonna be able to see even more. So let's see from here, area light, and then let's crank this one to 15. You're gonna see a little bit more of that. And then let's get around maybe like the nose right there. I'm gonna start seeing like it's very subtle around here. It's gonna see probably around there. This is gonna be completely dependent, of course, like from the thickness of all the surfaces you're using, right? You're seeing a little bit of the redness right there. One thing I normally do, I actually add some more front scattering for the skin. So the way you control the front and back scattering is by using this anisotropy control here. So basically, this is more back scattering, and this one is more front scattering. So it's gonna start seeing, you're gonna start seeing a little bit more of the scattering showing up like that. It gets more and more red. See? So for this one here, sometimes I use around like 0.15, and sometimes like 0.2, and that normally gets me a little bit more natural results, you know, like with the skin. So you know, that's kind of just like an introduction to it, of course. And then depending on your model, I mean, like your own taste too, right? Like it plays a role because everything here is kind of like an artistical approach. So it's not like completely, I don't do anything completely physically accurate or anything. But if you do, for example, if you want to play with those values and you feel like at 0.2, you get a little bit better result with the scatter, you know, it's like a little bit more red like that, it gets a little deeper, then you go for it. At this point here, it looks a little bit more like silicon to me, so it starts looking a little bit too scattery. And once you have all the maps plugged, sometimes it gets too much, you know. But I would say like a sweet spot would be less than 0.200 for me. So let's say if 0.15 was too little, actually I had 0.110, so maybe like 1.5 is, it kind of sounds a little bit better actually for this one. But yeah, it's a matter of like doing the tests and trying to get some of that. And then if I just like unlock this, now we're gonna have a render. That's our first render with some subsurface scattering in the model. But then we don't have any other you know, maps plugged or anything. Of course, we're not gonna expect to have anything half decent in here. But at this point here, if you want to go super fancy, we can actually turn on the HDRI and have both working at the same time. So you have like the directional light and you have an HDRI. And then for the HDRI, you can actually reduce the intensity, right? Just to get a little bit of a bounce. So if I do like half of that, even less than that, 0.2. So I get the reflections, but I don't get like everything too overwhelming, right? I get a little bit of bounce light on that side, but my primary light, it's this one here coming from the area light, right? Then let's play with the rest of the settings in here for the, let's select the object first. Let's just look at this ear here, if it's scattering okay. Yeah, it has a nice little hints of skin in there, you know. So around that ballpark, I would say like 0.110 to 0.150, you should get something that's closer to, you know, what we want to do at the end. But let's click this one back, and let's play with the other parameters in here, because so far we kind of skipped a lot of them. Let's go back up here, just because it's cool, you know. It's like to give you guys, if you never did anything with Arnold, just like a chance to play with stuff and then just render your stuff and see straight away and be able to correct like any proportions or anything based on actually something that it looks like a physical piece, you know. It's easier to evaluate like that. So Specular, you can actually you know, reduce the specular by using this slider here. So like I already explained the reference, but then this is the weight, right? So you get more and more specky. Sometimes you want to go overboard with the specular, and you're gonna you know, hit a wall in there. It's not getting any more specky than that. And then you're not using, for example, a transparent object, so you don't need to worry about the refraction in there. So you can actually use this one to crank your spec if you wanted something that's super shiny, right? So you can use the index of refraction to actually overblown that. So I'm gonna keep it like 1.5 right now, and then just gonna reduce this one, keep a little bit more on the, just for me to see kind of like almost like a concept of the skin I want to go for, right? But again, I'm gonna go through all those parameters, and I have everything you know, set for you guys. Transmission is basically controls the transparency of the object, right? Controls the transparency, but at the same time, it doesn't control how much of the shadow is going to be transparent. In order to do that, basically, like by default, when you bring anything into Maya, if I press Control A again to go to the attributes, right? So I have my clay in there, but then you have the first tab and the second tab. In the second tab, you're going to have access to this tab called Arnold. And this is where you're going to plug your, you're going to put all the parameters for your displacement and all kinds of stuff. So by default, it has this opaque in here for the mesh, any mesh you bring to Maya. So if it's a transparent object, in the case of the cornea and the sclera, you know, it's like it's going to be all in the same object. We're going to turn this one off, so we can actually calculate the you know, the transparent shadows correctly, right? But in this case here, for this guy, we're going to keep it opaque. And then if you scroll down here, you're going to see there's a bunch of different parameters. There's one here that's called SSS set name. I'm going to put a name in here called shared SSS. And the reason I'm doing this is that if you have multiple different objects and each one of them have subsurface scattering, if you don't match them with the same group name, they actually are treated as a separate entity, right? And we don't want to do something like that if you want to create like a seamless transition between different surfaces. So in the case of that render I did, let's go back here to my renders for Stan Winston, right? So let's see the close-up one, a very close-up one. Let's see, is that the one? Yeah. So if I want to do like a transition like that, where everything looks like it's part of the same kind of creature, right? If I didn't have those parameters set to the same name, so the cornea and the eyelid would be reading like you're gonna have some kind of like line in there. You're gonna have like a line that defines kind of like you know, it's like there are different types of surfaces and they're not blending together. So there's no like a transition, you know. So when I create anything, for example, the teeth, eyes, everything else, everything that has subsurface and I want them to be integrated when I render, I want to make sure that every single object, I'm going to go to the attributes of that object and I'm going to create something like this. It can be any name you want, right? But I always use the same name so I remember. So it's like shared SSS. And then when we start playing with the displacement, we're going to be going through those parameters. For now, I'm not going to do it. And yeah, so that's basically like an introduction to this Arnold tab inside of the attributes, right? And then again, like let's go back to the rest of the parameters here for the shaders. So transmission you're not using right now. Subsurface is there. Coat is very cool because that can create like either a kind of like a clear coat effect if you have like a super shiny table or whatever, you know. But it can actually help with the skin quite a lot. I didn't use it for the skin that much before, but then for this latest renders I start doing, all of them I'm using coat as a secondary specular. So the spec you get like in those areas. Let's see if I can go back maybe like one here, like forehead. Let's see if I have one. Those are all my albedo. Where is it? I thought I had more stuff here. Maybe this one. So this awesome little soft reflection that I'm having here, this is all coming from the secondary specular I'm using. So I'm using like the specular to get the super shiny stuff, like the very, very sharp reflections. And then for the broad stuff, like this type of reflection here from the flashlight, I'm actually using the soft version of the coat. So for the code here, I'm going to go through those parameters with you. Again, just like introduction, right? So I can actually play with it. So if I just keep rendering here in the background. And actually, I can just select the object and then just concentrate into this tab here. So for the coat, if I increase this one here, you're going to see it's going to get very shiny at first. Not so much because my index of refraction is only 1 in here. I can actually crank it, right? So I can actually see the reflection itself. And then the roughness here, if I have something that's very, very low, it's completely wet, right? So it can create that clear coat effect. But for the skin, to create that soft reflection, I can use something like very high, like for example, like 400 or even higher than that. And then it doesn't look like much because we don't have any detail in the surface. But as soon as you start having pores and wrinkles and everything starts breaking up and you get some very interesting results, you know, and you can definitely recreate that entire like area of the forehead I just showed you guys just by using this controls, you know. And then there's another one here that's kind of new for Arnold that's called Sheen. And this one is actually a simulation of, you know, velvet. It's almost like you create that little Fresnel effect depending on the angle. It's very sensitive, you know. It's like if you start using too much of it, it starts working and making some kind of like weird, creates kind of like weird effects, you know. So in the examples of that page of the Arnold manual I just showed you guys, when you go to Subsurface or to shaders, they're gonna show some examples saying that, you know, it improves the skin and everything because you can add the little Fresnel effect, right? But I normally don't use it. You know, it's like either I don't use or I use very, very little effect, because what I want to do, I actually want to create the effect from this from the peach fuzz anyway. You know, so I have peach fuzz in the entire face, and then although here got too strong, I have to shave his nose. But at least like for the face stuff, depending on the angle you look, you're gonna have like a nice little effect already, kind of like that. You know, it's like whitish right there. So that's what I'm looking for, you know. I'm not looking for faking it. But for his clothing, I mean, like for his jacket, I actually used that little sheen, and it worked fairly well, you know, because I didn't have a lot of peach fuzz in it. So you see there's a little bit of a Fresnel effect in there, especially from the full body stuff. Like, that the one? No, go back. This one, right? So we got that little nice effect in the clothing just by having the little sheen applied to it. So yeah, it's like you guys have questions about it, like so far, or? I think it's a good way for you guys to just start, right? Like doing some renders, you know, at least like you're not stuck, like I said, you know. In the previous class, what happened is that people got very shy doing renders from the get-go. And then, for example, in the first week, I don't deal with the surface detail just yet. I just introduce you guys to all those concepts of, you know, like of the shaders and the lighting and everything. And the second week, then we start actually, you know, it's like transporting this. First, I'm gonna reproject that model into a base mesh that I have. In this case here, if you guys are using or planning to use the base mesh I gave you guys, you don't need to do that because you already have everything in place. You have the UVs and everything in place. And just make sure you check your emails because I sent an updated version of it with the UVs fixed, and it's a mesh that actually is completely symmetrical now. That you can actually use Symmetry in ZBrush and it works fine. And I also gave you guys a OBJ version just in case you don't have the latest ZBrush to open it. So in your case, you're not going to be doing that, but I'm going to be torturing you guys for at least one day next week. It's going to be very super boring. That's the most boring day of the entire thing. And that's basically what I'm trying to do is I try to reuse as much as possible the detail from previous models. And then, for example, like if I want to reuse the entire section, instead of like having to reinvent the wheel every time, I can actually do that. And I'm going to show you how I do it. But for the purpose of the class itself, I'm actually going to re-sculpt everything by hand, right? That's what I did in the last for the previous group. My plan was to actually, you know, it's like reuse a lot of stuff from one of my previous models. I demonstrated to them how you can do that if you have a previous model with all the detail already. So how to reuse that stuff like HD geometry detail, right? So you don't need to reinvent the wheel, and you can actually crank like multiple likeness models like very fast that way. But because I want to demonstrate how I do the freaking, you know, it's like sculpting by hand kind of thing, I actually, in front of them, I actually just smoothed out the surface, and I started from scratch, and I started by sculpting the cheeks, and then the muzzle, and then the next day I think I did like the eye bags. So that way I kind of covered everything about like the pores and wrinkles the way I do, and then everything else was basically a repetition for everything else. So you know, it's like as soon as I get you guys to do that kind of stuff, I think you're gonna get the concept of it and be able to do it. But up to that point, there's one day, I don't know if it's gonna be Tuesday probably. It's gonna be boring because I'm gonna just be reprojecting stuff. It's gonna take me a long time just to reproject all the stuff I have into another base mesh, and that's basically the same base mesh I use for all my models. And I just trusted the topology better, you know. So you guys, if you have any base mesh you want to reuse, I can show you how I do it, you know. Yeah, that's about my plan for next week. And then from that point on, once we have that stuff handled, let's say like Tuesday, if you have that handled, on Wednesday, you're gonna go into the pore detail, right? And then it's gonna be super fun because it's gonna look very easy at the beginning, and you guys gonna be like, oh man, that's awesome. That's gonna be so easy to do. And then you're gonna try to do yourselves, and you're gonna be screwed. Because what happens is that if you don't have experience with it, you know, the distance between the pores have to be, it has to make sense, you know. If you make them too dense, too close to each other, they look fake. If you make them too spread out, they look fake. So depending on the different areas, like you have like cheeks, they're gonna be more spread out because you have like this volume in there that's kind of stretching the skin. But in other areas, they're gonna look a bit more compact. And just to get that thing to look correct, you know, it's like in certain areas, they're gonna be stretching. I'm gonna be showing you guys how I stretched some of the stuff as well. And then it's gonna be very, very much like a challenge for you guys to sculpt stuff by hand. And what happened last class, I was saying before, is that people got too much into that part. You know, they got stuck into doing like too much of the pore work and forgot to do like a lot of the render tests. So I want to make sure you guys are doing more render tests from the get-go. That's why I got more into a basic skin shader here, so you can be happy seeing what you're getting first. And I want you guys to do the renders from the get-go before you even get into the pore detail, because then you're gonna get too obsessive with it, and then you're gonna feel stuck at some point, you know. And then all of a sudden you're not seeing too much progress. And I want you guys to feel progress, you know, to feel like you're actually creating something. So that's why I'm trying to fix that in this class. So I'm gonna save the scene in here so we have everything in place. And I'm gonna show you how to get those multiple renders out as well. So save file. It's gonna be the first one here. Actually, I have Ray render 1. Let's do that. Let's put render HDRI 1. And that's gonna be the first. And I'm saving as binary, not ASCII, because of, you know, it's like the files are much smaller. And I normally, like, if it's corrupted, I don't even know how to edit the ASCII anyway to actually solve anything. I know there's a lot of information you can find online how to, you know, to fix something that's corrupt. But yeah, I don't use it. I use my binary. And then now we have like the three positions for the camera. So let's do a little quick rendering here just as a test. So we should get something like this and multiple angles. So let's see. First we're gonna do here, I'm gonna actually reduce the resolution so it goes faster, just for a little test. So we're gonna do like let's say like 500 by 500. And then you're gonna see there's a tab in here. You already spoke about that. That's the start frame and end frame. So it's like only 3 frames you're gonna be rendering. And then Maya now, for the past 2 or 3 versions, they have this thing here under, instead of like modeling, you just click the drop down and go to rendering. And if you click render, there is this new thing here called the render sequence. Before it was just batch render. You could not do much with that. So here the options are like by default all off. I normally click this one here, add to render view. And that's basically is gonna accumulate into the Maya render view. The thing is, like I noticed, is that Arnold render view sometimes getting, at least in the past versions, it would get in conflict with the actual Maya render view. So before I do anything like that, I just close this one altogether. And then I just use the render view from Maya here, right? So I'm gonna do like a render sequence, and it's gonna pop right here. And let's see how fast we can get those renders. It should be fast, because it's small right now. The samples are kind of small too. So let's see, we gotta get one in there.
Hey, Chris.
Hello.
The first questioner always here.
Yeah.
I would drop a link in the chat. It's one of my previous characters that I've made.
Okay.
I want to have more progress in terms of detailing and rendering of this character, and I haven't ever used geometry for detailing, and I wanted to know you prefer if I remove some of these details and go for geometry for detailing this, or what you suggest for it?
Well, first off, this model is an awesome model. I remember seeing it. When I saw it, I was like, man, this is really great. I love how
really appreciate it.
Yeah, how like it has a lot of style in it, you know. So the first thing I would say is that you have to plan your model, right? If you're gonna go for the entire thing being HD, you're gonna start suffering a little bit, because you might get stuck, you know. It's like you're gonna get probably like to get all the detail for the face and everything. You're gonna have to cross maybe like 200 million polygons to go for the full body. But if you plan it, for example, like chopping around the waistline, for example. So if you chop you have like one base mesh until here, and then you have the legs separate. You can save some stuff, you know. So it's a matter of like how we're gonna plan this, you know. For example, like when I sculpted Kong for this Skull Island, right? Like, actually, I had to plan the topology to be mostly in the face. So like it was like instead of like having the gorilla basically like with topology completely even everywhere, I had like 50% of all topology was in the face, and then everything else was mostly like covered in hair, so I didn't care too much. But in this case here, you have everything, you know, it's like revealed, right? Like everything is very visible. So
Nice.
yeah, there are a couple of things you can try, man. I mean, like one would be to break up your model in multiple pieces, like for example, like the waist, like I said, and then just generate the displacement maps for those areas. You know, yeah, it would be very hard to actually go full HD and get detail everywhere at the same rate. But for example, like if you plan your topology to have more resolution around the face and chest, for example, and then leave the legs with a little bit less topology, you might be able to calibrate, you know, it's like and find a good spot. At the same time, with that being said, for Warcraft, for example, when we did the characters for Warcraft, the entire bodies, I believe, was like only 70 million polygons. So there's a lot you can do with, for example, like if you use another software like Mari, for example, that you can actually have a lot of the detail in the displacement, but you can actually break things even further with a higher resolution map on top of it, you know? So it depends on how many maps you're gonna be using as well. Yeah.
So you say it's better if I use texture detail for skin pores and stuff?
No, I'm saying like, for example, like for the face, I would definitely use like HD and things like that, even for the entire like upper body, you know? But I'm just afraid that if you try to include like hands and legs and everything else, that you're not gonna get like
upper body.
What's that? Sorry.
Just I want to render just the upper body.
Oh, okay, yeah. So in that case, I think you can go full HD in this entire thing. You know, if you have the model up, you can post on the group. You can just like see how many polygons you have in your base mesh and just count them, and just post that number in there. Because that way you can actually calculate how many subdivisions you're gonna need and how many polygons you can actually reach. You know, it would be very nice.
Sure.
Yeah, it's gonna be very nice to see this all in HD. You know, it's like it would turn out really amazing, actually.
Thanks, man.
It's a beautiful model, man.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
Can I make one question?
Yes.
When you start to show the not the render settings, the shader by itself.
Yeah.
I think you start to use the. Can you repeat which kind of shader did you start to use?
Oh yeah. So this is actually this is the last render right there. So that's pretty cool that we render all of them. Let me just show you this first, and then I'm gonna jump right to that. So basically, like what that option did in here with the add render to view, basically like now you have access to all of them in here. So you have all your renders in there, right? But at the same time, if you go to your subfolder, I'm gonna just finish this one to be right there with you. So Ray Harryhausen, and then under images, you should have all the renders in there, right? So basically that's the way it works. So about the shaders, let's go back in here and let's see which ones are the ones we start with. The one I mentioned is this Uber shader that Arnold has. It's the main shader for everything. So if you click to this one here, click just Arnold, you're gonna see there's just like the shaders for everything. It's all mixed. It has like nodes for lighting and everything. But if you click just shader, you're gonna see there's one here that's the, let's see, 7th from the bottom. That's called AI Standard Surface. So that's the one you want. If you're using like physical hair, that's going to be doing a lot of X-Gen render, you're going to use the standard hair. And later on, we're going to be doing simulations like doing some clay renders. We're going to use the ambient occlusion plugged in the base color as well. But for the purpose of skin and even metals and stuff, it's always a standard surface.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah. So basically, I used that one and I just renamed it to clay. And then I started with a preset here, just like presets, and then I just started with this clay preset, and then I just tweaked all the the values in here to get something similar to what we have here for the skin. But obviously, I'm sorry.
We will receive this this video to have time to practice how to build it.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. All those videos are being recorded, right? So you guys can at any time just pause and, for example, like copy all those parameters and then just have like exactly what I'm doing here, you know?
Yeah, because I think the realism that you got with your models is very, it's very important part to understand how the light works in the real settings, right?
I totally agree, yeah. And that's why, for example, like in the past class, what I did, I started with a certain render shader network that was used for like Dick Smith and the Rick Baker models. And it was working kind of okay, but it wasn't great. So I actually started with that. So they plugged that shader and we started seeing some results. But then over the weekend, I actually started like playing around and I used more of the coat, like I said, like for diffuse reflection. And I actually updated my shader network. And I actually, when I did that, I updated everybody. So basically, like, you know, I played with this over the weekend and here's the results, you know, it's like it looks much better. So if you guys want to copy, and I just did exactly like this. I opened a tab and I went like one by one and so they could take notes of everything, you know. So yeah, at every time I change anything, I'm going to be updating you guys to whatever I'm doing because I want to make sure you're all in the same page, you know.
Wow, perfect. Thanks, man.
Awesome, yeah. So yeah, so at this point here now we have like a nice little render we can actually compare and actually go through, let's see, which one is that? This one. And we can start like, okay, so what's not working, right? The chin doesn't quite look the same. The teeth, okay, the teeth's kind of okay. The nose, maybe like I can go lower, but at the same time, I had an expression that was more extreme in here, so maybe I can just relax it first and then start playing with the position of the nose, right? Because at least the sides of it is gonna get lower because the smile is not as extreme. Maybe I can raise the eyebrows a little bit, like maybe a little bit more open, right? It has this interesting angle in there. So all of that I'm gonna be trying to do based on the renders I have. Obviously, those renders I didn't do based on any of my references, but you guys, if you're smart, you can actually try to match the positioning of the heads in your render, right? Like in your viewport in here. Even if you have a little bit of an angle, right? Like we can always use the roll like I did before. So in this case here, there's a little angle in there. So I'm just gonna go and use the camera tools roll. I'm just gonna add a little bit of that roll right there. Just get a little bit closer to that angle, right? And then maybe like a little bit lower like that. So with something like that, I can start playing, okay, I'm gonna compare that, you know, it's like I see the ear is slightly more visible in one side, maybe the head's a little bit more turned like that, right? So, you know, something that's just close enough because the purpose is to actually eyeball most of it, right? And at the end, if we're having trouble with the likeness, we can always use like I wouldn't like encourage to use like a blueprint in here. I would rather use like a little image in the background, like from ZBrush, just to actually try to match, although this camera is a mess, right? But if you can get something that's close enough, just to get relationships correct, you know, it's like make the interface transparent and then just like put some image in the background, just to actually check eyes in relation to nose, if they're right position, mouth, but without actually zooming in and trying to match anything, you know? I think we are good enough to actually do that just based on the references, instead of like cutting this gigantic shortcut, right? That is to actually learn how to observe the form, which is so important. And since we are in this class, it's gonna be a great opportunity actually to push ourselves, like when it comes to observation, right? So I'm gonna be doing the same with you guys. And like I said, I mean, like I never know how the model is gonna turn out at the end. I always hope for the best, but sometimes the likeness, it doesn't end up being exactly how I wanted it, you know. But it's part of the struggle, you know. It's like I struggle all the time with my stuff, so maybe I'm faster at some aspects than you guys because I use my own pipeline and I kind of know what to expect from it. But you guys are probably faster than I am in a lot of different things, you know. Let's see, 900. Let's do another one with the actual Arnold here with this new camera, so I can actually compare. Let's do it, Arnold render view. And another thing that I started mentioning, but I didn't go through too far with it, was basically like this little tab in here, which you can actually color correct stuff. You know, it's like play around, like the exposure and the color, you know, the gamma, and then you have those presets in here as well they give you different results. There's one here. This one is almost like this log gives me almost like a Instagram kind of washed out kind of result. You can always use these ones if you want. You know, it's like I tend to do all my post processing and everything in Photoshop anyway. But you know, just so you know, you have those options in there you can play with. Sometimes it's cool to just tweak the colors in here. Let's play around. So 1, 0. And then obviously, if you're doing anything here, we're gonna have to actually make sure that you're actually carrying those changes when you're going to Photoshop, for example. So in that case, you have save image options here. You have those options that says like apply gamma and exposure, right? Just make sure that you have those in there. And then it has the transform as well that matches that one, right? So you can actually use in there. Color management 8 bits or like enable, you can just enable it. But yeah, so let's see, 1 and 0. That's basically the default in there. Let's do a little rendering here with that angle. See what I get. So now it's something like that. I can actually, you know, bring that one back, and it kind of like, okay, I can get a feeling, you know, maybe it's a little, the rotation is a little too far right now. At least I can see some of the stuff. But then obviously, if I'm doing something trying to match the volumes, I'm gonna try to simulate the lighting as well. Not precisely, but good enough. So let's just make sure that we have our outliner here. And I'm gonna just play with our lighting. So let's just get to this area light. Actually, not this one, the area, where is it? Right here, it's a little hidden there. So area light, and I'm gonna switch to my other camera. And I'm gonna, it's almost like a front light here, right? It's a flashlight that they're using. So for the flashlight, what I did for my render is just duplicate this area light so I don't lose it. So to duplicate it, normally if you just press Control D, it normally loses the connections. So the best way is to actually go to Edit, and you go to Duplicate Special and click this little option box. And then here you're gonna see, just click like a group under world. So basically like there's no group, right? And then you just keep this one clicked, duplicate input connections. So now it's gonna duplicate with all the connections you need to actually have this lighting functional. So I can actually hide the original one, Control H, click this one. And then in the parameters of that, I just move this one away. In the parameters of that, that soft box, I actually have some shapes in here you guys can try. So it's by default, it's a quad. But for my renders, I switched to a disk. So basically, I had an area light that looks like a disk like that, right? And I actually had a little rig that the light was slightly offset up and to the right from the camera. So I had it basically like it was constrained to the camera. So every time I had a render, you would actually you know, adjust. And at the same time, the intensity would change. I used like a set-driven key function in Maya to actually just do that for me, you know, just like you know, change the intensity of the light depending on the position in relation to the z-axis, I believe. So it would change for me and compensate for the overexposure. So you see, like it's very big right now. If I want to simulate something that's like a real world stuff, it's not like I'm going to use like a mini softbox that's just rounded like that. I'm probably going to get to something smaller because it can be like a small flash or a dish, right? Like one of those small dishes. And you see that the shadowing here underneath his nose is very, very sharp. So that means like the source is probably small, right? And it's actually coming slightly from the left, not the right. So I can just try to do something like that. Let's see, like just with something very simple like that, what we get. Let's get my render back in here. And I'm actually going to turn off the rest of the stuff. Since I changed the size of it, now it's very, very faint. Just going to make it smaller in here. Side. And then let's make the intensity bigger. Go all the way, let's see, 100. So I got a little bit more of a, you know, a little bit sharper in there. It's still not sharp enough. I think I can go sharper than that. obviously not the best type of lighting to evaluate volumes, right? Like a 3/4 light would be much better than that. But I can do like multiple little setups that I can actually use to match different types of pictures. I can just go like even smaller than that, a small flash like that. And I can just crank the intensity here to, let's see, 400. Still very little, 1,000? Yeah, okay. So I start to get a little bit more of that feeling of the sharper light. Now you went too much to the side. So I'm just gonna move it more towards the center. Maybe a little higher. So I can get the feel of it. You know, it doesn't need to be completely precise, but. And then now I can start looking at the shapes of the face, right? And then I can see that, you know, it's like, for example, the chin is not quite there. I can actually, there's a lot of asymmetry, of course, happening here. And that's another point that I forgot to mention. You saw that I was modeling this thing yesterday completely symmetrical, right? And then if you're doing this just like for doing quick concepts and stuff like that, I would have broken the symmetry much earlier than that. But because we want to save the maximum amount of time we can, because adding pores by hand is not a joke, you know. It breaks up relationships. Families abandon you. So you like don't play with that. It's dangerous stuff. So you keep everything symmetrical all the way until you have all the pores put in place. You know, I'm not going to say all the pores, but at least like the mask. And what I call mask is basically like the from chin all the way to eyebrows, just the front, right? And then everything else is more secondary, like you know, it's like the neck and then the sides of the face and then the forehead. It's going to be more secondary. But I would say like until you have this area here covered with the pores, not wrinkles, just the pores, I would not break the symmetry, you know. At the same time, I mean, like, how can we match like a likeness if you are not using asymmetry, right? Well, what I do, I try to kind of like use an average, right? That's basically all we can do. You can actually average. You can look at the reference and you can see things that are just the average. You know, it's like if the chin is a little bit more pronounced in one side, the other one is more receded, you actually find a happy place in there in the middle. And then you model just to have an okay likeness, not a perfect likeness at all. And then once you have all the pores in place, it's important to have the symmetry, because you want to sculpt the pores in one side and get the other side for free, right? So you're going to do everything symmetrically when it comes to the pores in here. And as you approach more towards the center line, then everything is going to be asymmetrical. But all the way until here, like let's pretend like we save a little band in here in the middle. That's this one. So let's say if we have a band that looks like this for asymmetry, right? Everything else here is going to be symmetrical when it comes to the detail. Now, once we have all the pores applied, then we're going to start like actually, okay, what makes that person that person? And that comes to like how specific the wrinkles are, how asymmetrical the wrinkles are in relation from one eye to another one. In case of Stan Winston, actually one of the top eyelid in one side was higher than the other one. Same thing for Dick Smith, right? And then some very specific wrinkles that I normally I sculpt completely asymmetrically because I want them to be very specific. But when it comes to pores, that's the painful part of the job. You know, it's like to add all those pores by hand. And I mean, like, if you're smart about the way you do it, for example, like if I just have like a little, you know, if I have my little single pore in here, right? So that looks like a butthole. So that's the butthole pore. So let's say like if I'm doing all this stuff by hand in here, which I'm going to be doing like in the cheek area, right? I'm doing all those guys by hand. I don't need to do this all by hand if I create like a little array, for example, of the same pores in a plane that I can actually reuse and then have something like, let's see if I find it here. Single pore. I have one that was actually a bunch of pores. Skin double. Man, I'm getting blind right now. Skin pores. Jesus. Well, I'm gonna find it eventually. So there's this multi-pores here. I don't know if this is like an old one. So this one has actually some pores baked in there, but I think the result was too automatic. It looked like the pattern was too even, you know? So I wasn't getting like a very cool result. But I made another one. I'm gonna have to find it. It's here somewhere. Oh, this one, multi-pores, right? So this one is a much tighter one. You see right there? So this one has a lot of stuff. So this is the one I use like for forehead, you know, it's like for the sides of the face like that. And I would build them with like circles like that, big circles, and then just fill up the gaps. I would never go over the border with them, like basically like have an overlap. And then every single gap in here, I would basically like sculpt with the single ones. But this saved me a lot of time. So I did a lot like neck stuff, you know. Obviously, I'm just messing around here, but we're gonna be doing the right scale later on. So yeah, that's why it's so important to have everything symmetric at this point, you know.
Just a quick question.
Yeah.
Does morph target works in HD geometry?
HD geometry, no. Yeah.
Because I wanted to say we can use that to have these multiple pores and remove some of them with morph target, morph brush.
Yeah. To blend stuff around, right? Like to have like everything blending. Yeah, that's my approach is very manual, man. It's very old school, you know. So yeah, if I need, so if we need to do anything very specific, it's almost like I just smooth out an area. There's lots of ways of like tricks, right? Like for example, like if I go HD mode here, I can always go to the lowest level of the HD and then you smooth things around, you know, so I can blend things better. For example, like the pores for the nose, they are not super well defined like those pores we have for the cheeks, right? Like we have those the butthole the butthole shape of those pores. We're not gonna see them when it comes like to the nose pores, for example. So instead of like modeling them at the highest resolution of the HD, I'm gonna go, for example, like 2 or 3 subdivision levels less, and I'm gonna apply them. So when I go up, I'm gonna see just like a mention of that. It's like a faint version of that pore, but without all the detail, you know. So there's lots of ways of doing stuff. We're gonna go through that. It's gonna be fun next week, though. And then yeah. So let's see how we have like 10 minutes right now. So if you guys have any additional questions, I think what I had to cover today, we kind of covered. So at least I send you guys on a good path to actually do some renders tonight. If you can post anything, not tomorrow, of course. Like I said, I don't want to give you guys any homework or anything. We're all adults, and it's just like you're going to go in your own rhythm. But maybe like within a couple of days, you know, it's like if you feel more comfortable showing stuff, if you can just like post some of your renders so we can go through that.
Hey, Chris, can I make a question?
Yes.
My background is with render is a little bit bigger with V-Ray.
Yeah.
When I try to start to make the renders, the skin shader with V-Ray, we have 2 options. We have the fast skin, fast SSS.
Yeah.
And we have the another version that is like all shaders.
Yes.
And the all shaders just looks more close with the mental ray, with the old school, with multiple maps, the subsurface scattering, plus the diffuse or albedo or whatever, and a lot of different kind of specs. We need to make how much different maps of specs to break up better the light on the surface of the model. In your workflow, what are you planning for us?
Well, my workflow is like like everything I do is very simple, you know. I keep everything super simple. Like my shader network for skin, for example, it's very simple. Doesn't have a ton of nodes. I only add stuff if I feel like it's not working, you know. For example, like if I need to add like an additional color into my shader network, I'm gonna look at the results first. If I'm seeing something like, okay, so I compare like to my renders, right? And I see like, okay, with just like 10 nodes, I'm getting something like this. So how can I improve it? You know, it's like maybe I can add something, maybe like to control the subsurface scattering a little bit better in a certain way. So I add additional map or something. that everything is going to be very simple. I think, although some of you guys are V-Ray users, I think you should take like this class as a chance to actually do more renders with Arnold, just to feel the difference.
Yeah. I'm trying right now, and I'm fascinated because it looks more fast, and the result is better.
It's better, and I tell you that the all shader came from Arnold, right? It was written by someone. The guy is a TD. I don't know what studio he was actually.
I think that guy was former Weta,
right? Yeah, exactly. So he wrote it, and when I started using Arnold, people pointed me to it. You have to use all shaders. So I installed it, and it was pretty amazing, right? And then they released this new Arnold, and they promised like, okay, all the all shader stuff, it's already there. But then a lot of people are complaining because no, it's not. It's not the same result. I'm not getting this and this and that. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna insist. I'm gonna keep working with it and see what's in there. And then I was actually surprised because it's a much simpler version of that in a way, because you don't have it's less controls, but what it gives you, it's so good. You know, it's like the quality of the subsurface is really good. Exactly. And the thing that I love about Arnold, and coming from someone who uses, I used to use V-Ray a lot in the past, and I totally abandoned V-Ray. I know that it changed a lot, and now it has the all shader and everything. But V-Ray, I had a lot of accidents, you know. So I would change a parameter, and then I would see something that's not exactly what I was expecting. And with Arnold, every single time I change a parameter, I know exactly what to expect. And it's very, you can reproduce that effect over and over again. You know, it's like, it's very easy to control everything. I love it. I mean, it's simple and it's straight to the point, and the results are really good.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, man. This is just this class today. I think you have, it's enough to pay the $1,000 because I learned so much today.
Oh, no, no,
man, this is blowing my. Yeah.
No. If you paid $1,000, you were scammed because it was $800, man.
Oh yeah. Sorry, I'm in Canada, man. Sorry, no, Canada is the different. It's not Canada. It's a little bit less.
Yeah, that's true. No, but I tell you, man, like I'm gonna say something. I mean, like if you talk to any of my students from the previous class, I mean, like across the board, they said, dude, it's too cheap for what you're showing, because I was actually, this is just like, we're starting, you know, it's like to see stuff, but it's going to get like much more complex, and we're going to go much deeper into stuff. And you're going to get, at the end of this class, after 32 hours, you're going to get a lot of information. And like I said, like, I mean, some of you guys have more experience than I in rendering and stuff like that. So maybe some stuff is going to be, you know, it's like, I would not approach that way. But maybe like some of you guys going to get some stuff from my modeling side of things that you're going to be able to incorporate. At the end, you're going to have like information on rendering, modeling, the concept behind the stuff I do, lighting, you know, it's like everything, hair, everything is going to be covered. So those videos, I think they're very precious, you know, because although it's going to be hard to find at some point because they're going to be going through a lot of parameters and things like that, you can always go back to the videos and rewatch. If I show you, like, for example, like my, let me see if I'm going to pull it to the side here. Just going to pull some statistics just so you can have an idea on my Vimeo. So basically what I have on my Vimeo right now, I have all the videos in here, and I have, let's see. I'm just going to show you the statistics actually. So just move this one. So basically, like, this is my first class, right? When this is basically the duration, how much the videos were watched so far. 17 days worth of watching, 16 hours, 17 minutes, and 44 seconds of videos. So basically, like this video here, this about the skin pore detail that I sculpted, 57 times it was played, right? And I had like 23 students. So that means at least like twice per student, you know, it's like they watched this. So basically, like this entire thing here was on pars, and this is what's going to be the next week for us, you know. See, like, so I'm showing like this is basically what I did, you know. It's like I started with the previous model, but then I erased this entire area, and then I started erasing everything else, and I sculpted everything from scratch, just because I thought you guys would get the most of the class if I did that way, you know. So at the end of that Tuesday class, I should have something similar to this. You know, it's like showing the pores, the approach of it, like distance and everything, you know. So you're gonna get a lot out of this, you know. It's like this is basically the gallery of the previous class. You know, it's like 40, no, not 40, but I don't remember how many videos I had. Like there's a bunch, 22 or something like that. And a lot of information. It was like hours and hours of video. And like I said, like the guys are just like rewatching all the time because they're trying to catch up. A lot of you guys are professionals, you know, and you have like full-time jobs and then, you know, get home and try to rewatch it. But it's pretty precious and you can actually download everything, right? So it's gonna be fun. After the class is over, long gone after it's over, I think you guys are still going to be referring to those videos, you know. And the plan is, I mentioned this in the group today, my plan is to actually open those videos from the previous class to you guys as well, and open your videos to the previous class, and have like everybody who signed for May, June, and July to have access to all of them. Because at some point, like maybe some technique I improved or something like that, or a slightly different approach. So you guys are going to be able to compare with the previous class, get some more additional information, you know. It's really up to you. I'm just trying to, you know, to create something that's nice, you know, like for you guys as students and as artists, you know, something that's is worth the money, you know. I know it's cheap in relation to a lot of stuff that happens. For example, you go to anatomy class for anatomy tools, for example, just as a comparison. It's going to be like a 5-day class, and then you're going to pay like, I don't know, between $1,200 and $1,500, right? And then this one is going to be like close to 40 hours of intense stuff, and it's going to be $800, you know. And you're going to have all those videos to, at least for 1 year, they're going to be available. Hopefully more, you know. If I keep doing those classes for a long time, I'm going to be just like resigning Vimeo and then having this for, you know, years to come. But if I decide to just stop the classes altogether, this is signed for about a year. So you have like 1 year to download those things, you know, and have in your computer. Just please don't redistribute anything, like, because this is basically like it's helping my family right now. So I would just like ask people not to pirate it, but you know, I have no control over that. So at some point it might happen, you know. But yeah, it's being fun. Oh, and another thing I did here is actually this. Check this out. I have this showcases in here. I already have one for our class, June, and I have one for the previous one. So the way it works is basically I'm going to give you a link at the end. And for example, if I click share here, this one is the link, but you're going to need a password, which is right there, actually. See, like you can actually already see it from the previous class. So this showcase here is actually you have access to all the videos from the past class, basically, right? And this is my plan, is to actually give you access to all this stuff so you can actually watch them. See, like every single one of them, this is like the introduction one was 99 minutes, so the shortest one, but everything else is like over 120 minutes, right? All the way. And then I have the review sessions, those ones here, like 111 minutes one, and then the other one 53 minutes. What happened is that I run one review session every other weekend. So it's gonna run, I'm gonna run one, not this Saturday, but the next Saturday. So we have like a week and a half to actually prepare stuff to show. And then I have one scheduled for 9 in the morning, Los Angeles local time. Another one's gonna be at 9 p.m. Los Angeles local time as well. So it's like 12 hours gap between them. And that gives you more chance to actually be online with me, you know, instead of like, just like never catching because you're like you're sleeping right now or something, you know. So I do this, I split like I had to do like 1 hour in the morning and 1 hour in the at night, but it wasn't enough to cover everything because a lot of people submitted stuff. So I had like 111 minutes in the morning plus 53 minutes at night. But because our group now it's bigger, you went from 23 to 34 people. Now I might need more time to do that. But what can happen as well is that if you're online, I'm going to do your reviews straight away with whoever is online. And then whoever is left, I'm going to do at night. And even if you're not present, all the reviews are also recorded. So you're going to get my notes anyway, and you can watch them later. So that's the way it's going to work for you guys. But yeah, that's what I had for today. And I hope you enjoyed the class. I hope you have a little nice quick start for your renders, and then I see you guys tomorrow. Actually, I see you soon on Facebook, probably like in the group if you want to post anything. And now I'm gonna just wrap it up and then get this video as soon as possible to you guys, probably like in an hour and a half from now, or maybe shorter. I don't know. Depends on how much time it takes to process it. But anyway, thank you so much, guys.
Thanks a lot, Chris.
I see you very soon.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, today was awesome.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. I'm loving
Bye-bye.
it too. So thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.